The spoon slipped from my hand and hit the plate, sharp, metallic final. Every sound in the dining room stopped. My father's breath broke the silence. "Get out," he said, voice calm, almost kind. "You've disgraced us." The chandelier hummed above us, light trembling on the glass of water I hadn't touched. I stood the air thick with perfume and shame. No one looked at me, not even her. I walked toward the door, my footsteps echoing against marble. Behind me, the glass cracked softly, a thin line crawling across its surface. Years later, that crack would lead them straight back to me. When I was 12, my father, Thomas Bennett, told a reporter that talent skipped generations. He smiled as he said it, his arm around my younger sister Jenna, who had just won a school essay contest. I stood beside the camera lights holding the watercolor ribbon I'd earned that same week. No one asked about it. At home, my mother Valerie moved through rooms like a curator, fixing frames, straightening flowers, and reminding us that the Bennett name meant order. She'd say it the way people say prayers, measured certain, unquestioned. I learned early that love in our house came wrapped in quiet rules: stay composed, stay useful, stay unseen. Our home in Maple Bridge was old, with tall windows and cold floors that carried every sound. When guests came for dinner, I set the table while Jenna played piano in the next room. My father always called her our prodigy. He called me reliable. It sounded like praise until I realized it meant forgettable. The year I turned 16, I entered a local art contest. I spent nights painting in the attic, oil and turpentine clinging to my skin. On the day of the exhibit, I searched the crowd for my parents. They didn't come. That night when I got home with the small bronze medal, I found them dressed for a gala. "You understand," my mother said, adjusting her pearl earring. "The donors expect us." She didn't ask how I did. I placed the medal on the kitchen counter. It stayed there for months, collecting dust beside a bowl of lemons. Jenna had a way of glowing under attention. She didn't ask for it. It just followed her. Teachers adored her, my parents orbiting close behind. I became the person who remembered birthdays, checked the mail, covered for mistakes. When Jenna forgot to submit her college essay, I stayed up typing it for her. When she won the scholarship, she said, "We did it." I nodded. That winter, my father asked us each to paint something for the gallery foyer. Jenna painted Lily's precise commercial, exactly what he liked. I painted sunlight breaking through stained glass. When I brought it down, he didn't look up from his papers. "Too personal," he said. Valerie smiled faintly. "It's sweet," she added, the way people talk about children's drawings. The next morning, my painting was gone. Weeks later, I found it in the storage room, stacked behind crates labeled seasonal decor. I didn't cry. I just watched the dust settle over the glass frame. It glittered under the afternoon light like it was still trying to be seen. Years before the night they told me to leave, I already understood how absence worked in our family. It didn't start with shouting. It started with silence. Doors half closed, names left out, eyes sliding past me at the table. That was the day I learned my place in this family. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday, thin and cream-colored, smelling faintly of roses and dust. It was addressed to Ms. Sofia Bennett in handwriting I hadn't seen in 6 years, my mother Valerie's. I opened it at my desk in the Community Art Center, paint still wet on my fingers. Inside was a wedding invitation. Jenna, my younger sister, was getting married at Granville Hall. The printed words looked elegant, deliberate, and cold. My name had been typed near the bottom, then crossed out in blue ink. A faint indentation of a pen remained, as if someone had hesitated before erasing me completely. The classroom behind me hummed with children washing brushes, their laughter distant, unreal. I held the card until the edge pressed into my skin. For a second, I thought I imagined it, but there it was, my absence confirmed in ink. I walked to the window. Outside, late autumn light slid over the square, where the Bennett House of Art, my father Thomas's gallery, still stood like a monument to everything I'd lost. The same letters, the same spotless glass, as if nothing had ever broken. I remembered his voice the night he threw me out. "Get out! You've disgraced us." Sometimes, even after all these years, it still sounded near, like he was standing right behind me. That evening, when I tucked Noah, my 5-year-old son, into bed, He asked Mom, "Do I have grandparents?" His eyes were the same clear blue as Thomas's. I hesitated. "Yes," I said finally, "but they live very far away." He nodded, satisfied with an answer that didn't explain anything. Later, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the invitation again. The gold foil shimmered under the lamp, catching the light like it was mocking me. I could have torn it, burned it, thrown it away. But I didn't. I folded it once perfectly straight and slid it into the drawer beside unpaid bills and school forms. I smiled, then a small, hollow smile. It wasn't forgiveness. It was recognition. I had been erased before. This time I'd make sure it was recorded. I started waking before dawn again. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the radiator and the occasional crack of the old pipes. The air smelled faintly of paint thinner and coffee grounds. I liked that smell. It meant the day hadn't touched us yet. While Noah, my son, still slept, I cleared the table and laid out everything that held our life together: envelopes, receipts, old payments, lesson plans, and a half-empty sketchbook. The paper edges curled, slightly stained with color from years of use. I opened a clean page and wrote 3 words across the top: "Keep close, quiet." Every morning after that began the same way. I brewed coffee, answered art class emails, paid whatever bill I could afford that week, then walked Noah to the community center 2 blocks away. He carried his small sketch pad in his backpack like it was a secret weapon. We'd crossed the square together past the Bennett House of Art, where my father's name still gleamed in gold across the stone. I used to look away. Now I made myself stare straight at it until the traffic light changed. Back home I worked. Not loudly, never loudly. I taught online art workshops, organized supplies for the children's classes, and began sorting through the old records that still tied me to my family. Every transaction, every payment, every old scholarship receipt I'd kept since high school. Proof of how I'd survived without them. At night, I added to a file on my laptop labeled Foundations. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation, each line a quiet correction to the story they'd written about me. Hospital invoices from Noah's birth, rental agreements, tax statements, a digital trail of endurance. When I finished, I'd sit back and listen to the hum of the refrigerator, the soft breathing from the bedroom. Those sounds meant I had rebuilt my life from zero, and no one could erase it again. Sometimes, between lessons, I'd walk past the local art cafe that had offered to display my work. The owner, Patrick Hale, a local art critic who'd once reviewed my high school exhibit without knowing who I was, smiled as he hung my paintings on the wall. "You capture quiet," he said. I didn't answer. I just nodded because he was right. Quiet had kept me alive. The weeks before Jenna's wedding passed in small, deliberate motions. I bought Noah a new jacket for winter, replaced a broken chair, and painted late into the night. One piece kept returning to me, a revision of an old work I'd called Light Through Window, the same one my father once hid in storage. I painted it again this time with stronger color, warmer light, no shadows left unfinished. The day I finished, a letter arrived. Not an invitation this time, but a plain envelope addressed in my father's handwriting. Inside was a check and a single sentence: "If you're willing, I'd like to see you again." His signature below it trembled just slightly. I sat at the kitchen table, tracing the ink with my thumb. The money didn't move me. The sentence did not, because I believed it, but because it meant he'd finally written my name again. That night, I didn't tell Noah. I folded the letter, slid it into my Foundations folder, and kept working. I didn't plan revenge. I planned structure, a map. If they came back, I wanted every truth, ready dates, receipts, hospital records, photographs. I wanted no room for denial. Saturdays became our ritual. Noah and I painted together at the community center after my morning class ended. The children loved him. He had a way of mixing colors that always surprised me. "You can see feelings in colors, Mom," he once said. "Yours are quieter than mine." He was right again. Sometimes during those afternoons, I caught glimpses of my reflection in the studio window, hands stained with pigment hair, pinned back, face calm. I barely recognized the girl who'd been thrown out of her home. I realized I didn't need forgiveness to feel whole. I just needed consistency. When Noah slept, I'd sit by the window light from the street lamps glinting off the painting hung above my desk. I thought about the last time I stood inside my parents' house, the marble floor, the echo of my father's words. The sound wasn't anger anymore. It was data, something to file and store. My life had become its own archive. As the wedding drew closer, I kept my focus on small, measurable things: lesson attendance, art supply inventory, savings account balance. I signed forms, updated insurance, sent invoices for private lessons. Every click of the mouse was an act of quiet power. No confrontation, no speech, just precision. A few nights before the ceremony, I opened my sketchbook and wrote, "If I ever see them again, I'll let silence speak first." Then I turned off the lamp, folded the note into the back of my journal, and went to bed. The morning of Jenna's wedding, frost covered the window edges. Noah tugged at his little tie, complaining that it itched. "We're just visiting," I told him. He nodded, clutching my hand as we left the apartment. Outside, the air was sharp, clean, honest. I locked the door behind me and slipped the key into my pocket, its cold weight grounding me. I had kept closed and quiet. Now it was time to walk into the noise. Granville Hall gleamed like a glass jewel under the November sky. Inside, everything smelled of lilies and polished silver. The guests' laughter echoed through the atrium, polite and distant, as I led Noah, my son, through the entrance. His small hand tightened around mine. His tie was slightly crooked, his shoes squeaked against the marble. He didn't care. He was curious, eyes wide, drinking in the chandeliers, the string quartet, the shimmer of people who never looked twice at someone like me. Then a voice, soft, nervous. "You came." Jenna, my younger sister, stood near the stairs in her white gown bouquet, trembling just slightly. She looked exactly how I remembered, delicate, adored, untouched by consequence. "I didn't think you would. I almost didn't," I said. My voice came out even. She smiled, half relieved, half afraid. "They're here," she whispered. And they were. Across the room, Thomas and Valerie Bennett stood among their friends, older, now grayer still statues in designer clothes. My father's posture hadn't changed. Neither had the way my mother's eyes cataloged every person, every imperfection, until they landed on me. The music swelled, the crowd shifted. For a second, no one breathed. My father's glass stopped halfway to his lips. My mother's hand froze on her clutch. The air was heavy with perfume and recognition. Then he saw Noah. Their reactions happened almost at once. My mother's smile, faltered lips parting slightly. My father's hand shook the glass in his grip, catching the light before it slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Heads turned. The quartet's melody stumbled, then stopped. "What? What is this?" my mother whispered. Noah blinked, startled by the sound, then hid behind my leg. I could feel his heartbeat through my dress. Every eye in the hall was on us, on the scandal that had come back, wearing a small suit and curious blue eyes. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Silence filled the space they had built from reputation and fear. For once, they couldn't control it. The first to recover was Patrick Hale, the art critic who had supported my work. He stepped forward, looking from me to Noah, then to my father. "The boy's got her hands," he said quietly, almost reverently. "Look at that sketchbook." Noah had already pulled it out, his instinct in any tense room. He placed it on a nearby table and began to draw. The sound of the pencil scratching paper broke the silence like a steady heartbeat. Guests leaned closer. The drawing was simple: two figures standing beneath a bright window light falling between them. My father's jaw clenched. I watched him realize what everyone else saw. That window, that composition, it was mine. The same image I'd painted years ago, the one he'd buried in a storage room. "He has her gift," Patrick said softly. "A Bennett after all." The crowd murmured. Somewhere behind us, glasses clinked again, faintly nervous. The orchestra hesitated, unsure whether to resume. My father finally spoke, voice lower now. "Sophia, just my name, heavy as confession." He took a hesitant step forward. "Please don't go." I turned to face him. For the first time, his eyes weren't made of stone. "You told me to leave," I said quietly. "I did." He exhaled, shoulders dropping, the performance gone. I was wrong. My mother's voice broke. He looks so much like you. He should, I said. You tried to erase me, but he's proof that you couldn't. Noah looked up at me, unaware of the storm he'd just calmed. Can we go home now, Mom? He whispered. Yes, sweetheart. I took his hand. The guests parted silently as we passed. My father's hand lifted, but he didn't touch me. My mother's eyes shimmered, tears caught between pride and regret. At the door, I paused long enough to look back. The shattered glass still glistened on the marble. A waiter knelt sweeping it into a silver pan. I didn't feel victorious. I felt precise. Behind me, I heard my father call my name again, softer this time, but I didn't turn around. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a reset. The music started again, inside distant, muffled by heavy doors. I held Noah's hand tighter as we stepped into the night. Justice, I realized, didn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it came quietly like a breath the room had been holding for years. Snow began to fall the following week, thin, slow flakes that caught in the streetlights outside our apartment. The world had quieted again. Inside, the heater rattled and the scent of cocoa filled the air. Noah sat at the table coloring a picture of two people holding hands under falling snow. He hummed softly, unaware that anything in our life had changed. Since the wedding, my phone had buzzed twice, messages from Jenna, both short, both careful. The last one read, "They want to come see your class." I didn't answer right away. I kept staring at the half-finished mural on the studio wall, our students' project, a burst of color spreading across the gray concrete. Every brushstroke was a reminder of what I'd built from silence. That Saturday, they came. Thomas and Valerie Bennett, my parents, stood hesitantly in the doorway of the children's art room. No cameras, no audience, just the faint hum of laughter and the smell of poster paint. Noah ran to greet them, tugging them toward his table. "Grandpa, Grandma, look, I'm mixing blue and yellow." His voice was bright innocent. They followed unsure, as if stepping into unfamiliar light. My father watched Noah paint, eyes softening. My mother sat beside him, hands folded tightly, until she finally whispered, "He's happy here." I nodded. We both are. For a while, they stayed helping rinse brushes, drying paper quietly, learning the rhythm of my new world. When class ended, Noah handed my father a small drawing, a window filled with sunlight. The same image I had once painted. My father took it carefully, his voice low. "You kept your light." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That evening after they left the room smelled of soap and drying paint. I stood alone by the window. Outside, children's laughter echoed from the park, fading into the wind. The world felt still peaceful in a way that didn't need forgiveness to exist. I turned off the lights one by one, leaving only the faint glow of the mural against the wall. In it, the window shone brightest, painted by small, uncertain hands. Silence at last wasn't something I feared. It was home. I used to think survival meant noise pleading, proving explaining. But real survival was quieter. It was the sound of a brush against canvas, a child's laugh in a sunlit room, the breath that no longer shakes when someone says your name. Forgiveness didn't rebuild my family, truth did. And sometimes truth doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs to stand. Unshaken. Seen. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself from silence, this story is for you. Tell me, where are you watching from tonight? And remember, healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "You made it."